everybody. Welcome to Fanfare Fridays, where we hope to ask the questions you want to know. Please know at the end of this session, we will pick one question from you, our viewers, to present to Waylon. So if there's something you want to ask, now is your moment. Please put a Q in front of your question so it can be easily found. And just to be clear, we will only be able to pick one live question, so make it good. So now, let's get on with the show. Straight from New Orleans, Fanfare Fridays presents Waylon Thibodeaux, Louisiana's rockin' fiddler. Welcome, Waylon, to your Fanfare Friday.
Well, hello.
How are you?
I'm doing fine, hanging in there.
I see you're growing that beard out. I like it.
Yeah, it's kind of nice and woodsy.
Because that's like, what else do we have but time right now?
That's right, exactly. I started growing this beard a few years ago when I started working on the house and we moved to the woods. And my wife said I didn't intentionally grow it. It was just I wasn't taking care of it. That's all. And so my wife said, "Well, you kind of look good with that beard." I was like, "Okay, well, then I'll grow it for a little while."
And that's sweet that she has that priority.
That's right.
So the questions have been written. Are you ready?
I'm ready. Hit me with them.
All right. Let's start with, what age were you when you did your first paid gig?
Well, that's a great question. I was 13 years old when I got my first band, and we drove up to Shreveport, Louisiana to go play for a rodeo. And I got paid $100. I was so excited. I was 13 years old and I got $100.
And how many in the band?
There were 6 people in the band. They had
so what did you each made the 100, or you had to split that 100?
No, we each made 100.
Oh yeah.
And here's what's crazy. That was back in 1983, and they were given $100 then, so that was very good. Well, now that's all people want to offer sometimes is $100. It's like, wait a minute, everything else went up. Why not the pay of a musician?
And that's going to be the interesting thing coming out of this COVID gate, is, where is that value for all parties involved? The person in charge of the promotions and the artist who's going to be there. Yeah, let's hope it's going to be 150.
Yeah, at least. But it was pretty cool. We played for a rodeo, and there was 6 people in the band, and we had a steel guitar player, we had a bass player, rhythm guitar player, fiddle player, and myself on drums.
So now you're going to lead to my next question.
Okay.
It wasn't actually going to be my next question, but we're going to make it.
Uh-huh.
How many instruments do you play, and what do you play?
Well, I started off playing trumpet in the school band. So I played that at one time in my life, but if I tried to play it now, it'd probably sound like a seal in heat. So I don't say I play that instrument, but I play drums, I play fiddle, I play guitar, and I play bass. And I really wanted to learn the piano, but I didn't have a burning desire to want to learn how to play the piano like I did for the other instruments that I do play. And the only reason I'd like to know it, but at the time I ended up getting a Pro Tools studio, so I had to learn all of that stuff, and that has a severe learning curve to that. So I've told everybody, instead of learning how to play the piano, I learned how to play the studio. And so that's one thing. And then during this COVID time, that would have been another great time for me to learn how to play the piano. But I've been working on my house nonstop, and hopefully around Mardi Gras time we'll get to move in. So So that's what I've been doing. Instead of learning another instrument, I've been learning how to be a carpenter.
And that is great news to hear. You're going to move in Mardi Gras.
Oh, I hope so, for sure. For sure.
And tell everyone how long you've been working on this house.
Oh, geez. Well, we moved on to our property 6 years ago, and they had a house that was on it that was deemed no value in our deed. And everybody was telling me, well, you need to work on it. You need to get this house together, and it'd be a great place to go. They got great bones and everything for the house. So I started working on this house 5 years ago, and we changed the roof, all the windows. I scraped all the outside of the house down to the wood, caulked everything, painted everything, and got it all watertight. And then I started working on the interior. I took all of the tongue and groove boards down and numbered each one so I would know exactly where they came from so I could put them back. And anyway, just been working on the interior. And because of the COVID thing, I hadn't been playing too much music as everybody else hasn't. So I've been working inside that house, and I'm getting to be a pretty good carpenter, let me tell you. Do you know that you could build the world if you watch YouTube?
Well, and if you ask my fiance, it can also cause you to buy the world, because not everyone on YouTube is giving you great advice.
This is true. This is true. When somebody starts off, well, you know, past week I brought my dog to the vet, and you want to know something about tile, you know? It's like, wait a minute, just stop.
You're not my guy.
I'm gonna have some coffee out of my favorite coffee cup, if that's okay.
That's great.
This actually came from Germany. This coffee cup is about 15 years old. Somebody brought this to me, and I drink my coffee out of that. So I'm gonna have some coffee.
Oh my God. So the reason I ask you about the instrumentation is because I learned something about you last night, Waylon, that I never knew.
Wow.
Maybe
I don't know it either.
Thank God for the internet and the thousands of bios that you can find, right?
There you go. Yeah, that's right.
So something I learned about you, which led me to be like, he did not play fiddle with this man.
Yeah.
So tell me about playing with Tony Orlando. How long did you do that? Where did you play? And what instrument did you play with him?
Well, I'm glad you asked. Well, we were playing on Bourbon Street, and Tony Orlando had come into New Orleans to buy some big Mardi Gras heads that a person would wear, but it's like, 5 foot taller than them. It was a Mardi Gras thing. And so he came into town to buy those, and he just so happened to see us playing on Bourbon Street. So he put some money in the tip jar when my father was passing it around, and he told my father who he was. Well, my father came and asked me, he says, do you know who Tony Orlando is? And I said, well, yeah. He said, well, he's sitting right over there. So we went and talked to him, and my father was playing the washboard with me at the time. And so he invited my father and I to go do a few shows with him, a couple of them in his theater that he had in Branson, and one of them was for a national broadcast, and it was in the Kenny Rogers Theater.
Oh, wow.
So we went did a few shows with them. We flew into I guess Springfield, Missouri or something, and it was snowing. It was around Christmas time, or New Year's time, something like that. And it was a lot of fun, man. He was a great guy, and he really treated us well. Super.
And you did play fiddle?
Yeah, I was playing my instrument. Yeah, playing fiddle.
My memories of Tony, because I was a very young girl at the time when he was so popular, I just can't relate to how that would fit into his style of music,
Right. Well, it was we were guests at his shows, so.
Right. No, I figured he hired you to play drums. That's what I assumed you might say to me.
He had a hell of a drummer that I'll never forget his name. His name was Pope.
Pope.
He was a great drummer, man. Yeah, super guy.
Oh, that's awesome. So let's come back to the basics. Where were you born and where do you live now?
Well, very good. All my family is from Terrebonne Parish. I'm originally from Houma, even further down the bayou in the town of Chauvin. And I moved to Houma when I was 4 years old. My mom and dad built a house. And so we moved to Houma. And I lived there till I was 18. And then I moved to New Orleans and I lived there for 15 years in the New Orleans area. Then I moved to Georgia. I moved to Houston. And then I moved back to Houma. And I said, that's it. I'm not leaving the state of Louisiana no more. So I actually moved back to Houma. I bought the house that I grew up in from my parents. And I lived there for another 6-8 years. And then I sold that house and I moved north to Livingston. I'm straight north of Houma, but it takes about an hour. It takes about an hour and 40 minutes to get to Houma from where I'm at, because you can't just drive straight. You got to drive through the swamps and everything, and a lot of curvy roads and all kind of things like that. If as the crow flies, it's only maybe 40 miles or something from Houma, but it takes a whole lot longer than that to get down there.
Where in Georgia?
I lived in McDonough, Georgia. And I used to tell all my friends, I live in McDonough, Georgia. And they were like, you live at McDonald's?
It does kind of sound like that. And
No,
from a Georgia standpoint, you got to get that slang right.
That's right. McDonough is just south of Atlanta. And
Okay.
so anyway, I lived there for a little while, and I had a friend of mine that also lived in McDonough, Georgia. I had a great guitarist played with me. His name was Barry Chance. Well, Barry actually used to be the band leader for Jimmy Buffett's band. And his son lived in McDonough, Georgia. And anyway, so, you know, I hooked up with him while I was there and stuff. But there, my buddy Barry, his father actually played bass with Patsy Cline. His name was Lightning Chance. And Lightning Chance had something kind of really cool. They wasn't allowing drums on the Grand Ole Opry. So they would bring an upright bass, and on the upright bass where you hold it at, right on the belly of the bass, they'd have this little drum thing. And so he'd play the bass with his hands, and he'd slap that little drum thing with a little wire brush. So it kind of sounded like a drum. And you can actually hear that on some of the recordings, like on the Everly Brothers of Dream. That's one of the tunes, and probably some other stuff but it just sounds like a snare drum being played, but it's actually on that bass fiddle, you know.
And did they do that to keep true to the roots, or just the acoustics of the room?
Well, instead of having a drummer, which wasn't allowed, they wanted to still have the drum beat, but they had to improvise and do it the best way they could. And so Lightning Chance's upright bass is in a museum, and they still have that cowhide drum thing on there. So it's pretty neat.
That's interesting history right there.
Yeah.
So how would you describe the music that you create?
Well, that's a good question. You know, I draw from all different kinds of sources. Living in Houma was kind of neat because our French Cajun music sounded more like country music, some older country music, but it was all sung in French. As to where if you go to Lafayette, you hear more of the chanky-chank music that people play out there. Well, and also living closer to New Orleans, we had, you know, some other influences, some jazz and blues and whatnot. So all of that, I've been exposed to that, you know, all of my career. Growing up, we listened to a lot of old country music, Conway Twitty and George Jones, and I was like, why the rest of the world don't play this kind of music? But anyway, that's the music I grew up with and started playing. That's when I was playing drums in a country band. So I just got exposed to a lot of different music, playing on Bourbon Street, and then getting with the Voice of the Wetlands All-Star Band. You know, all those guys play all different kinds of music. So more of that music, you know, I was exposed to, and then I started putting the fiddle in blues and jazz and other kind of stuff. There's been fiddle players in old jazz music, you know, but not too much fiddle in the blues. So I thought that'd be pretty good to add that to my repertoire. So that's why my latest album was a bluesier album. And you know, I keep my ears open all the time for songs that I'd like to record or things I'd like to do. You know, sometimes I'll listen to a songwriter's catalog and find something that I really like, you know, so I'll record some of those things. And of course, I try to write my own stuff as well. And, you know, a song can be any style that you want it to be. As long as you have a words to a song, it could be anything. And the perfect example, they did the song by Cheap Trick called "I Want You to Want Me," and they did that as a ballad, and I was blown away.
You're talking about the brothers. Oh my gosh, they're one of my favorite bands.
Cheap Trick. That was the name of that band.
No, but there is a cover of that song.
Oh.
Oh my gosh, this is terrible. My brain has gone dead. They were all brothers, the Holmes brothers. They are known for redoing songs. And they did that song, and it was amazing. I mean, they slowed it down into a gospel song.
Postmodern jukebox.
Postmodern jukebox.
If you look that up, and the lady that sang that, her name is Sarah Nimitz. Oh my God, she blew me away, man. You got to look that up. That's all I can say.
And you look up the Holmes brothers.
The Holmes brothers. Okay.
Look up their version of that song. It was, I mean, they're the kind of band that you hear the song and you start singing it, right, but then you're like, I've never heard this, and why do I know these lyrics? And then it hits you like, oh, that's Cheap Trick, and I know that song. So I'm going to look up your lady, and you look up the Holmes brothers.
Yes, most definitely. So tunes, you know, tunes can be anything, and that's the perfect example right there. So, you know, I listen to these songs. I listen to the way they may do them, and the band always says, or the people I'm working with, they always say, you put your Waylon stamp on it, or you Waylonize it, you know. So, you know, that's what I try to do, and I know how I want my music to sound. And I do the music that I want to do in the way that I want to do it, and that's how you develop fans. Of course, is to do the music that you like to play and things that you want to do, and if people like it, well, they'll come on board and they'll be your fan, you know. So there you go.
So I'm going to ask a question that isn't on the sheet. When you're a new artist and you haven't quite found yourself, but you're talented, what advice do you give to a musician that feels like they need to more, instead of being true to themselves, they're just trying to do what they think people want to hear? So what advice would you give to them to open themselves to learn how to Waylonize their own music, you know, to put their own stamp on it?
Well, for sure, never try to chase the radio, because you'll be 10 years behind. So that's the first thing. The thing to do is to play music, record something, share it with people, and get their opinion on it, you know, because that kind of puts you in what direction you need to be going in. My friend Joel Saunier was a big inspiration on my music. the way that he did things and structured his songs and everything like that. When I heard his music, I was like, yes, that's what I like. That's what I want my music to be. So from that, I branched out a little bit more to each side, and so, but that's how I do it. You know, I hear things a certain way, and when I record stuff, I go into the studio and I tell the musicians, like, for instance, my friend's mother wrote the song Chenier Tig that I recorded on my Shad Bebe album. And the intro of it, I wanted the intro to be just like the song that Led Zeppelin had called Rock and Roll. I wanted that intro with that drum and that hi-hat thing happening. I wanted that. And so I told the band, I said, play rock and roll. They were like, sure. 1, 2, 3, 4. And they took off with it. I'm like, okay, now you know what I'm after. I want that feel and I want that intro on there. So they stuck that intro on there and we started playing it, and that's how you Waylonize it.
I love it. I love it. So I'm torn between which way to go, because you've opened up some avenues of some questions I definitely want to ask. So I think I'm going to come back to this one. If you could change anything about the industry, what would it be?
Oh, well, in the 30 years that I've been doing music, the industry has changed tremendously. My God. I wouldn't even know where to start sometimes, be honest with you. I'm just trying to hang on for dear life, especially during this COVID thing, man. This is just killing everybody, you know. But you know, there's doing a lot of live stream shows and things like that. That was unheard of that many years ago, you know. Hell, the internet wasn't even around. But just I don't know. The industry has changed so much. If you're writing songs, be sure and get them published so that you can get paid if they played online and anywhere else. And just try to protect yourself that way. You know, make sure copyright your stuff. And the copyright laws have changed a little bit. You don't have to so much have them copyrighted because they were copyrighted at the conception of the songs. That's what I was told anyway.
And that is true. That as long as you have your notebook,
yeah,
always date it after when you start it, date it.
Right. Exactly.
And then that statement is valid. Yes.
And you know, just do that. Of course, you know, now the market's flooded with music. It's flooded with musicians as well, which is a good thing. But it's just harder and harder now to get, you know, shows and things that pay money, you know. And without music, man, can you imagine what this world would be like without music?
We've gotten a slight peephole into that this year.
Yeah. So if anybody was trying to start in the music business, you know, just dive in with all of your heart, but have something for backup. That's what I'm gonna tell you, because man, Lord have mercy.
So one of my questions to you is, if it weren't for your music career, what would your backup have been?
I don't know, because the only thing I ever wanted to do, it was my burning desire, and it still is in my heart, is to play music, period. That's all I have interest in. People ask me all the time before the COVID thing, what do you do for hobbies? I'm like, I ain't got no hobbies. I work all the time. I play music all the time. That is my hobby, you know. It's my hobby. It's my job. It's my love. It's everything I do, you know. And I enjoy being in the studio with other musicians and bouncing ideas off of them and stuff. It's a lot of fun to record music, you know.
That's interesting. So do you sing in the shower?
Man, I tell you what, I hate to say it, I do not sing in the shower. My mother used to sing in the shower, and she chased the water back in the shower head.
Well, probably most people who sing in the shower are really those people.
Yeah,
I sometimes do, and I'm no good at this.
I used to sing in the shower, but now I sing on stage, and people are like, when do you practice? I'm like, I practice every time I'm on my instrument on the stage.
That's the
But
truth.
yeah, it's always a lot of fun. Sometimes I'll do sing in the truck. I'll just give it a shot, see if I can even sing a song like that. I was singing the American Trilogy one time that Elvis sang, and he hit them high notes. I was like, let me see if I can do that.
And
oh, I hit them.
yay, the windows did not shatter.
Yeah, they didn't shatter at all.
So are you self-taught or are you trained?
No, I'm self-taught. When I was very young, my father would drive a hotshot truck, and we'd go ride with him. And he had rolls of paper towel. Well, I would take the cardboard tube out of the paper towels and make me a pair of drumsticks. So I'd beat on the dashboard, and my mom and dad could tell that I had a little talent going on. So the neighbors that were living next door to us, they gave me a little child's drum set. Well, the first thing as a kid, I was playing it with pencils because my mama didn't want me to use no sticks because it would be too loud. Well, the first thing I did, I shoved the pencils through the drum head. That's always fun. So then my dad took some plastic and covered it up with some plastic like you used to cover your furniture with, that clear plastic. So he put some plastic on them drums, and I started to play on them drums. And after a while, they could hear that I was getting pretty good. We went to the dump. I found a couple of drums in the dump. So I put them together with my drum set, and my mom and dad said, well, okay. I said, I really want to buy another drum set. So they let me buy another drum set. $250 is what it costs to buy a used drum set. And I cut so much grass trying to pay for them drums, I'm telling you. So I cut yards, and I did all that stuff that I had to do to pay for them drums. And then after I started doing that, that's when I got into the first band that I was with. And then I wanted to play the fiddle after that. So I asked my parents if I could get a fiddle. So I was able to get a secondhand fiddle. So I bought a 3/4 size fiddle, and I played and practiced that. And I was getting pretty good, but I wasn't that good. So I just put it in the closet, and I left it there for about a year, I guess. And in the band that I was playing with, they had a fiddle player in there. Well, he'd do some little things on the fiddle, and it kind of interests me again. So I'd take out my fiddle, and I'd try to mimic those sounds and do that stuff. And so then I started playing a little more and practicing. My friend that I had at the time was playing guitar. So we'd play some fiddle and guitar, and we were the same age and everything. And we also had an organ that my mother bought. She had one of these Hammond organs, I guess, that had the color codes on it and stuff. It was like a new organ, and they tell the colors on the keyboard would show you how to make a chord. So at the time, my sister and I was in the school band. She was playing clarinet, and I was playing trumpet. So we'd practice our music for the band on this organ. They'd have the drum beats in there, so we'd turn the drum beats on. And we'd play along with that. We had some good timing on that. Then I got interested in playing the guitar, and I played those chords on that keyboard, and it showed me what notes I needed to play on that guitar in order to make the chord. So I did that. So that was pretty cool. Then I wanted to learn how to play the bass. So I'd listen to the bass pedals that was on there, and they'd have a walking bass on the bass pedals. And so I'd put those notes on the guitar. So that's how I learned how to play the bass, was on a guitar, not on a bass. And the guitar that we had at the time, they got it at a garage sale. Well, the bridge had popped off the back of it. And and the strings were like this high off of the neck of that guitar. So I'm trying to play guitar, and my fingers are like, ah! And then my mother would tell me stories like, my cousin Larry, he'd play guitar so much his fingers would bleed. I'm like, oh God, I don't know if I want to. So anyway, out of that organ, I learned how to play one song. Okay, they had free lessons at the mall when you'd go to buy your organ, So I went to like 4 lessons or something for free, and but I never really learned how to play that organ. I played one song on that organ, and it was Blue Spanish Eyes, and that's
wow.
That's all I learned on that organ. But that organ really brought us a lot of knowledge, about the music, just by the way that the fancy foot worked and all kind of sounds like that.
I had an aunt who had one of those, Waylon. I had no idea that I was missing the opportunity of my life. I played it when we were there because she had the books. And like you said, I remember the color-coded keys.
Right.
But without that, it was like memory muscle, but not, in other words, I was thinking colors and not notes.
Right.
So it never translated.
I'm thinking of something right now. When I think of keys for songs, like if I'm play something in A, I see the color red. If I see something in F, I see the color green. If I see something in G, it might be like a yellow or an orange or something. And quite possibly that comes from remembering that stuff off of that keyboard.
That's interesting. I bet it does. And that's interesting. You see notes in color. I like that.
Yeah. Like E is black. Now maybe that's because it's Johnny Cash all the time. I don't know.
All the time, right? And do credit to the man of black. I like that.
And when I was in the band, we'd have band rehearsal at the house. The first band, we'd have the band rehearsal at the house, and they'd leave their instruments there. Well, I remember smelling those amplifiers and all of that equipment smelling like smoke in the bar rooms back in the day, But the bass player left his bass there, and I'd turn his amplifier on, and I'd grab his bass and I'd hit the notes on there, and it was like that note was just so deep and so intense, man. It was just I found what I loved, it really got something deep inside of me. And even today, man, I'll hear something and it'll be just like, wow, it just hits me to the core, And I haven't found anything else that does that to me.
That's why we are still here holding on.
That's right.
So who would you most like to collaborate with? And it can be like so large it could never happen, or like realistically in the near future.
Can you repeat that? I was reading Josh's message over here.
No, that's okay. And yay.
Yeah.
No, who would you most like to collaborate with? And it can be like a really, dreams come true. So it could be like a really big dream, or it could be like something in the near future.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Well, one of the biggest feathers I have in my hat, I played the song Louisiana 1927 with who's the guy that did it?
That's okay. My Holmes brothers should have never happened.
The Toy Story guy. The Toy Story guy. What's his name? Oh, anyway.
Oh my gosh.
We'll think about him after it's not on the spot. Anyway, that was the biggest feather I had in my hat. I played Louisiana 1927 with him, and so something like that would be really cool, man. To do that again with him. But one of my things that I wanted to do was all the people that inspired me to play music. I would love to do an album with them. There's a few people in Louisiana that I would like to record with. Also like Waylon Jennings, of course, he's passed on. But anyway, that that would be something that I really love to do um, with those people. Um, Hank Jr. too, you know.
Wait,
Yeah.
both their sons are really amazing.
Hmm.
Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of country, but the more that I've learned about the blues and just music in general, the more I've started to kind of lean that way. And I really like what this new generation in that outlaw sort of country is doing.
Right. Here's the guy's name, Randy Newman.
Randy Newman.
How could
I
we
was trying,
forget Randy
I was
Newman?
trying to Google it, and I was surprised it didn't. Google is not providing the information as it once did. So yeah,
Right. So yeah,
yeah.
I did that with him on stage, and there was an old fiddle player back home who was very good. Played with Bob Wills and some other people. His name was Rufus Thibodeaux, and
Oh,
and the first thing, whenever I got up and played that song with Randy, he says, I said, "Hey, my name's Waylon Thibodeaux." He said, "You know Rufus Thibodeaux?" So as big as the world is, man, musicians know each other. Believe me.
that is the truth.
Yeah. And there's also some Canadian musicians as well. You know, Chuck LaBelle is another guy I'd like to do some music with, and just lot of great musicians up there as well. You know, I went to Nova Scotia here 2 Christmases in a row to do their Christmas concert, and unfortunately this year I couldn't do it. So they're gonna do a live thing this coming Sunday, and they want me to say hello to everybody and stuff. So.
Oh, that's cool. Nova Scotia is one of my favorite spots in Canada.
Oh yeah, most
It's so
definitely. Love going to Nova Scotia. The people over there are so sweet and wonderful. I've got the Como family over there. They like my second family. Every time I get over there, they treat me like royalty. Uh, every time I'm over there, they welcome me with a bowl full of lobsters. It's like a lobster bouquet.
uh,
They're like, here, this is all yours.
and have they taken you to see the Puffin Island?
The Puffin Island?
There's an island right off of Nova Scotia that for whatever reasons they don't really understand why, but about 18, 20 years ago, puffins started coming there, and now this entire island is covered with them.
Wow.
They just keep coming back, and they just keep mating, like they found their happy place.
Right.
And it's weird because, you know, the weather doesn't make sense to the reason as to why they might be there.
Mm-hmm. When my wife turned 40, I said, I'm gonna bring you to the most beautiful place on the earth. So I brought her to Nova Scotia. And when I turned 50, a few years later, she brought me. But we went whale watching, and they brought us out in the middle of the ocean there, you know, and I couldn't believe how cold it was. And I like it cold. It was cold. And this was in July. This was in July that we went, and I needed a coat. I was protecting myself from the wind, man. And I like it cold, man, but that was freaking cold.
It is cold, and I remember when we were driving in, just the way the boulders are placed. I mean, it's like, I like to call it God's country because I've never seen anything so picturesque.
Yeah.
Where, like, you know, there's a big boulder and then you won't see another one for like 5 miles.
Right.
And yeah, beautiful country. I hope.
If ever some people get to go, I would recommend y'all going to see where the Acadians came from originally, and that's in Grand Pré. It looks like Grand Prix, but it's Grand Pré. And they have a museum there, and the way that the Acadians did it, they reclaimed all of the land that they were losing with dikes and things like that. So they have like an original piece of wood that was part of the dike system in the museum. But there's a movie that you watch. You go into the theater and you watch the movie. Well, it's like you're sitting on the inside of the hull of the ships that took the Acadians away from Nova Scotia and sent them all over the place. And it's really something to see. They got a church. It's a replica of the church that where the orders were read, saying that the British was taking over everybody's land and you got to go. And so they have a replica of that. They also have a replica of the book that they wrote down everybody's names that was that they were deporting and how what their worth was. Well, in those days, your worth wasn't money; it was how much cattle you had, how much sheep you had, how many kids you had, that how much land, so on and so forth. And the way that these British people butchered the Cajun or Acadian names was crazy. Like they spelled Boudreaux instead of spelling Boudreaux, they spell it Boudro. Boudreaux, Boudro. Same thing, Terrio. They messed those names up. Thibodeaux, of course. The original Thibodeaux name didn't have the X on it. When they got to Louisiana, they were illiterate people, so they needed to sign their name, so they would put the X. So they just put the X's on everybody's name.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so that's how the X's got hooked up with Thibodeaux.
That's interesting history.
Another album that I'd like to do was presented to me from my friend Randy Labby. Randy said, you ought to do an album of the roots of Cajun music, like where they came from and where they are today. And I was like, wow, that's awesome. So in the last years, I've been working on that, here trying to, what the music might have sounded like in Brittany, France, when the Acadians left from there and went to Nova Scotia. So what that might have sounded like, that might have been a little more Celtic background and stuff. Then when they got to Nova Scotia, it was a little bit more different, different instrumentation and stuff. And then when they came to Louisiana, it became even more different with the Germans that settled in Louisiana. They brought the accordion into the Cajun music. So you can see a progression of how all of this could work on an album. And then, of course, what it is today with my music and some other people like that, a little bit of rock and roll in there, and so it has a lot of place to go. So that might be the next album I'll be working on.
That's cool.
Yeah, I'd probably try to get some other musicians like my friend Michael Doucet involved, and Zachary Richard maybe as well, and some other people. Be a lot of fun.
That would be fun, and then educate those that aren't familiar.
That's right. That's right.
So when you say that you started singing, like the standard of singing was French, do you speak it or did you just sing it?
Well, my parents only spoke French, and when they went to school, they had to learn how to speak English. But they wouldn't speak French to us because that was a way to keep secrets away from the children. So they spoken amongst each other, and we'd go to my grandparents' house, and we would, they would talk, and they'd all speak in French. And me being a nosy kid, I wanted to know what they were saying. So I'd play with my toys, but I'd listen what was going on the other end of the room. So I was exposed to French, and I was learning how to speak it. And when I started playing with my friend Bruce Degrapone, he was doing all of his stuff in French and whatnot. And then I started singing more in French, and I wanted to know what I was singing about. So because I had a little bit of a French background, I knew what I was singing about, but it also helped. I asked my parents, what was I trying to sing? So they helped me out with that. So now I can speak French and I can sing in French. And I'll be honest with you, I probably only do about 10% of my songs in French when I perform, because I'm playing for more English people that, want to know what the songs are about and stuff. So, but it allows me to do both kinds of shows, either in Louisiana for more English speaking people, and then in Canada for more French speaking people. So
right. All right, we're coming down the wire, so I'm going to ask you a question just because I'm curious.
All right.
What's the most trouble you've ever gotten into?
Oh man, let me see. I'm gonna have to think about that. Well, I remember one time my mom and dad had an upholstery shop, and they would make tarpaulins and things like that. Well, they had this big building. It was kind of out in the woods a little bit, and they had a big old ditch. Well, my friend Sammy and I, we were chasing rabbits with slingshots and limestone rocks, and so anyway, we was chasing after these rabbits, man. We were running all over the place. Well, they had this big old ditch. Well, I told my buddy Sammy, I said, watch this. I said, I'm going to be able to jump this ditch, man. Man, I jumped that ditch. Don't you know, I landed halfway in the middle of the ditch. I was covered from head to toe, full of mud. It was just horrible. So then I had to go back to my parents and tell them what the hell went on. They said, oh, my God, look at you. So that was pretty bad.
And see, this is just judging because I know you got a slight rebel side to you.
Yeah.
So
definitely.
Grateful you didn't say it ended with getting arrested.
No. No, it wasn't. I didn't do nothing crazy like that, man. I was always pretty good.
And so maybe as the person who works with you, this is kind of a personal question.
Yeah.
What is your favorite and least favorite venues to play?
Oh man, well, every venue that has a live audience is a great place to play. That's for sure.
Good answer.
Yeah. Sometimes when I'm doing outdoor festivals, it's really hard on me because I hate the heat. I hate the sweat on my face. I hate burning up. It's just horrible. That's why I quit wearing my hat, Tina. I used to wear a black hat all the time. That was my trademark. And finally, I'm like, oh, no, I can't do this no more. So I quit wearing the hat, and I just, and then I lost my hair on top. And then people were like, well, I see you grew the beard. That's got to be hot, too. Maybe so. But if it's super hot, I'm miserable, you know. I played the blues festival in Bogalusa over here, and I was the only one in the sun. The whole band was in the shade, but I was in the sun. So I said, boy, you know, it'd be nice if somebody had one of them umbrella hats and they'd bring it up here. Well, sure enough, I got a picture of me with an umbrella hat.
That's classic.
Oh.
Somebody had one and they shared it.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. But as far as any venues I didn't care for, man, I loved them all. Throughout the years, I played a lot of music on Bourbon Street, and I only moved to 4 different places in 30 years, so I all these places were really good. A lot of musicians move from club to club all the time, and so on and so forth. But I had a good relationship with the club owners, and I liked where I was playing at. People would come all the time because they knew where we were, so that was good. And then playing a lot of nice, wonderful theaters and things like that. That's been a lot of fun too, because that attracts a different crowd of people there. They don't just happen upon your music and enjoy it. They're going out and buying the tickets, and they're going to see you. So that's a wonderful thing. One of the longest gigs that I've had. I've been doing this gig for 24 years. Go and play in Winnemucca, Nevada, every year in August. And they do a live cattle auction over there, and they sell like 100,000 head of cattle over video monitors. So it's really cool. But I've been doing that gig for 24 years, and that's been one of my best shows there.
So they don't auction them live? They're not in the crowd?
No, they're not in the crowd. They're not in the building. You don't smell one cow.
Wow. So do the buyers see them beforehand, or they just trust them from the view of the screen?
Well, they have booklets with write-ups and stuff.
Okay.
Of what the cattle maybe have been immune to, or whatever they got it shots for, and that kind of stuff. So it tells them about the cattle, and then they see video monitors of the herds. So they kind of bid on it like that, and that's a very interesting thing as well. They have a lot of big money that flows through there, boy.
And I only know what I know from Yellowstone. I don't know if you know that series, but they have a couple of segments where they're at a live auction buying cattle.
Right.
And, one cow will sell for like 15,000-20,000. And you're like, what?
Yeah.
But I
Yeah.
guess he's the guy you're mating.
Yeah. That's
Because I
right.
can't imagine you're making 15 to 20,000 per cow in beef, but
Right.
maybe I'm wrong. What do I know?
Well, like the calves and everything like that, that might bring in $1,200-$1,500 or something, and a whole cow might be double that. So you could about imagine 100,000 head of cattle at $3,000-$4,000 an animal. That's a lot of money.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's a lot of money.
So before we go to the live question, real quickly, what's your favorite song to play?
Oh man, I got a lot of favorite songs to play. The one that people ask for all the time is "My Baby Don't Wear No Drawers," of course. And I've got a lot of tunes I like to do as well. One that I've really been enjoying is "Here We Go Again." That's off my latest blues CD. But I've been playing the tunes that I record. People ask me that all the time. They see the 4 or 5 different CDs that I have for sale, and they ask me, well, which one's the best, and I'm like, well, that's like asking me which one of my kids I like the best, because I put my heart into all of these. So I tell them also I play songs from all of these CDs on my live shows. So if you like what I did, all these CDs kind of is a representation of all of that. But I like doing that one. I like doing some slow love songs. The song "Tell Me What I Mean to You," that's a tune that I wrote years ago. I like doing that one. One that I have a little trouble singing now is a song called "Big Blue Tears." I recorded that and I loved it. My friend Gordon Bradbury wrote it, and it's a beautiful, beautiful song. But the way that I sang it at the time, I sang it with a real high ending on it. And so now my voice is getting older and it's getting harder for me to sing that high end. I can barely get up there these days. Plus being out of practice since March.
Yes, indeed.
That makes it even harder. But the guy that plays piano with me now, he's been playing with me since he was 21. And we've been friends and everything. Well, he does some amazing stuff on the piano. So sometime I'll get him to bust out with a Jerry Lee Lewis song or something. But he's so good. We've been doing the song "Dream" by the Everly Brothers there, and I've got my little sounds that I use on it and stuff, and it's a lot of fun to do it. We're gonna try to do a live show here, a live streaming show on the 15th, and it'll be around 7 o'clock. I guess it will do it, something like that. So it'll be sort of a Christmas show too. If anybody wants to tune in, they can look on my Facebook or on the Daywalkers Facebook. That's the name of their group. And anyway, we'll do that. We played Bourbon Street here last Saturday. We're going to do it again tomorrow.
You
and
did? They're open?
Did. Yeah, well, in the courtyard. We played in the courtyard.
Okay.
And it was kind of strange because you're walking around there and it's a different atmosphere now. Everybody wearing those masks and stuff, and everybody just seems so confused, man. They just seem confused. But yeah, we played that, and I told my buddy, I said, man, why don't you send us live? I said, people would love to see us play. And he's like, that's a good idea. So we went live from Bourbon Street as well. We may go there tomorrow too. I don't know. We'll have to see.
Wow.
But, yeah. So we in the courtyard just as a trio, doing a little something.
That's awesome. because
Yeah.
all I keep hearing is New Orleans is shut down. So that's good to hear that
Yeah. It's
somehow
I don't know.
something's happening.
I don't know if it's gonna go past this coming Saturday, but we'll have to see. What's really crazy, here's something, an insight you wouldn't think. The club had to pay for a permit to be able to have live music. Okay, so now the clubs haven't been open, nobody's making no money down there. The city charged them $500 for a permit to have music for 9 days. Can you believe that? It's like, y'all not making money and now we're gonna rob you. Don't make no sense. Don't make no sense.
And then the fact that, it's such a part of the culture, they're almost forced to pay it.
Yeah. And here's Mardi Gras canceled. Can you believe that? New Orleans without a Mardi Gras? Come on, man.
I know.
I understand the virus is very real, but so is, people making a living as well. Come on, people.
And this is the fine line we're walking 9 months into this situation. Yeah. When this first happened, you and I were like, no worries, it's going to be fine by May.
Yeah, that's right.
And then May, we're both like, I have no idea.
Don't know what else is going to happen. Yeah, that's right.
So, all right, we're going to wrap this up with the live question.
Okay.
And it's funny because I know your answer, you've kind of answered it, but let's ask it anyway and think like, beyond the career.
All right.
So Scott Haywood from New Jersey wants to know what you do for fun.
Well, I play music and I play more music and I hang out with musicians and we have a good time playing music. Yep, that's about it.
Oh,
yeah. Maybe I'll get me a hobby one day, but right now it's just music.
Well, I guess realistically, you could say your house is your hobby.
Yeah, that's been a ball and chain, that thing, man. God, I'm so ready to be done with that. Look, I used to like to do stuff and be done with it like the same day. Okay, build something, be done, poop, move on to something else. Well, this house has dragged on for 5 years, and I'm like, whatever God wanted to do, He broke me of that habit. I guarantee you.
And that's probably why.
Yeah, no doubt.
Well, I really appreciate you joining me today, Waylon, and I really look forward when we can get back to business as normal.
Yeah, we will. It'll come around. Let everybody get the vaccine and let all this calm down a little bit. Hopefully nothing else will pop up to scare the dickens out of everybody.
It can't get worse than this. I mean, if they say it's every 100 years, this will be my last worse than ever scenario, I hope.
Oh yeah, no doubt, man.
Yeah.
I'm playing a New Year's Eve gig. Can you believe it? At a campground over here near my house. And when we sing Old Lang Syne, I'm gonna be like, adios 2020.
Amen. I know. I told someone the other day I was going to have the biggest party by myself for that reason.
Absolutely. I might run around the neighborhood with no clothes on.
Oh, and then that will update the question about the craziest thing you ever did that did end in an arrest.
There you go.
We'll definitely enjoy, and we will speak again soon. And thank you for joining me.
You're very welcome, and thanks everybody for tuning in. And Tina, thank you so much for having me. You and Josh, y'all are so great, and thanks for putting a smile on my face, huh?
Back at you. Thank you.
All right, my love.
Bye.
Bye.
So it's interesting. You did hear Waylon mention a gentleman, Josh, and I would like to introduce him in this moment. Josh Levine. Welcome. This gentleman produced this show today, and it's been a pleasure having you here, Josh, and I look forward to what we do in the future.
Of course.
And to all of you out there, if you liked what you saw, please click like. If you'd like to know when we go live again, hit subscribe. And we really appreciate you being here, and everybody have a great weekend. Bye-bye.